Chapter 12. Caelan persevered against his better judgment, if only a little bit longer. It was about baby steps, one step at a time, and before you knew it, you were there, as Dad would say. So Caelan trekked along beneath the illuming 3/4 moon, through the steep, perilous bush, nearing the foot of the mountains. The blood smudges had grown sparse. He felt more and more bent on finding the girl. The mountains were her only escape. With crampons affixed to his boots and an ice axe in each gloved hand, Caelan slowly ascended the mountain via a mild, highly exposed ridge. The crunch of each grueling step took him further from his fears, enlivening him until all unease was gone. He was up there alone, his own man, drawing strength from the breathtaking views of the shimmery coastline far below, beneath the glowing moon. The neighbouring peaks egged him on. So he kept going. Caelan glimpsed why Dad seemed happiest on a mountain. He was beginning to feel it for the first time ever. The exhilaration of life at its rawest, yet at its purest, at its most potent, and at its most fragile, as Dad would say. Only then would one appreciate it most. Caelan felt that elusive rush surging in him. It was the feeling of being too alive to die. Why, oh why couldn't he have felt it while Dad was still alive? Maybe then they would have had something in common. A gust smacked him back into the moment. The winds had picked up deceptively slow. The winds hit him head-on and full force, threatening to pluck him off the mountain. At elevation, there was nothing to wane them, nothing to warm them, nothing between him and them. The chill pierced him to the bone. He'd forgotten to check the weather before embarking. That was the gravest of all mountaineering sins. The fear was back. Death was lurking. How quickly it had all become a suicide mission. The point of no return had long passed. Caelan laboured not to panic as he continued ascending steadily. If he was going to die, it would not be in retreat. Fuck it, but he sure as shit had picked the wrong time to grow a pair of balls. Dad would have yelled at him for this predicament, no doubt. This was not how you climbed mountains. You laid siege to them as the weather permitted. Errors of omission were just as deadly as errors of commission. Or was it the other way round? Shit. He'd soon be dead and able to ask Dad personally, assuming there was some kind of afterlife, something Caelan had long struggled with, even as death seemed imminent. How'd he get himself into this shit? He was no fucking hero. He was too scared to die. What the fuck had he been thinking? They'd probably never even find his body. Yet, for some reason, inexplicably, he pressed on. The storm gradually eased, but the burning cold and skinny air continued beating him down. It sapped him of the will to go on. Every few staggery steps, he keeled forward and clutched his knees, gasping for air. He was no longer making much progress. He was freezing to death. But he refused to die there and let Dad's death be in vain at that point. Dad had given his life to save him. He couldn't do that to him. Not there. Caelan fought on. If he were going to die, it'd be on the summit. There, at least, it would honour Dad in some small way. After a long ordeal, he finally staggered onto the broad, stubby summit. Caelan fell to his knees. He threw his arms up victoriously, if only for a moment, his first solo ascent and summit. At night, in less than ideal weather. Tears streamed from his eyes and froze on his cheeks. It was not something he ever wanted, but he took it. The climb had not been too technical, unlike the stuff he and Dad would do, but no one could ever take it away from him. He was a climber. Caelan stumbled and slid his way down the opposite side of the mountain, via another mild yet treacherously exposed ridge. With every weary step, the air seemed less hostile, more breathable. His strength was somewhat returning. He was thinking straight again. It looked more and more like he would not be dying on the mountain that day. The fabled Alaskan interior wild awaited him. It was colder and meaner and more remote than the coast. Its grizzlies were hungrier. It was where hunters went to hunt death itself. No one lived out here in these badlands as far as he knew, not even Hermit Lawson. But then again, he knew nothing. Wasn't this place where the girl had come from? Caelan navigated the rugged interior wild as best he could. He was beyond spent. He had to find a spot to camp for the rest of the night, if he survived long enough. Everything there seemed to be colluding to kill him. Pointy rocks lay in wait beneath patches of fluffy snow. Precarious slopes of butted, jagged boulders, which seemingly yearned to greet him full force and face first. The exposed roots of shadowy trees schemed to trip him up, to ensure it. A blood-curdling howl boomed in the distance. Caelan flinched and looked around. He let loose a panicked bolt for the tallest tree, dropped his gear and climbed frantically, but kept slipping back down. Even after his solo summit, trees were still insurmountable. What the fuck was it with trees? It had always been that way, even before it cost him Dad's life. He was tempted to flee back up the mountain, where he would surely die. Caelan spotted a huge rock formation in the near distance. He grabbed his gear and bolted for it. He yanked his rock climbing gear from his pack as he ran up on the rock formation. He secured the harness to himself, strapped an ice axe to his back, coiled a rope around one shoulder, and began climbing, abandoning all else. The howl boomed closer. Caelan nearly lost his grip, then his footing, nearly falling and barely recovering each time by sheer luck. He paused, closed his eyes, took a deep breath. Stay calm. Always. He persevered in a slow, steady manner. After an arduous effort, he crawled onto the top of the formation. He switched off his headlamp and rolled onto his back, drenched in sweat, more spent than ever. The night had grown oppressively cold. Caelan was shivering, and mist was emanating from his nose with every exhale. The cold rock itself was sapping his body heat. Lying there, still and exposed, was costing him dearly. Whatever it was that spooked him, though, was gone. All was tranquil. Caelan turned onto his stomach and peered down. He switched on his headlamp. He stared longingly at the rolled mountaineering jacket, sleeping bag, and tent strapped to his pack. He shouldn't have abandoned his gear, much less after removing his mountaineering jacket while trudging through the interior, beginning to overheat. Abandoning his gear in a panic had been a stupid move, yet something typical of him. It's why Dad insisted that he always remain calm. Always calm. Believe it. When was he going to learn? Caelan secured his belay and abseiled halfway down. He hung on the line clumsily, labouring to scope the area. The rock formation and trees obscured most of the moonlight. His headlamp was dimming. He had to change the batteries. But nothing seemed out of the ordinary. He abseiled all the way to the ground. Before he could grab his gear, mist emanated from a nearby boulder, beautiful, billowy, whiter than white, rising from pitch black. Caelan stared at it, frozen. He was forcing his eyes to discern what it was. It wasn't a boulder. He couldn't move, even as he finally discerned the mist to be emanating from a huge, diabolically incensed snout. It charged. Caelan scrambled back up the rock formation as it rose onto its hind legs and leapt at him. It clawed the soles of his boots as it smashed into the rock. Caelan arrested his fall by holding onto the line for dear life. He frantically resumed climbing. It did it all over again and again, smashing violently into the vertical rock, unable to climb up after him. Caelan eventually crawled onto the top in hysterics. It tore at the rock formation until its claws penetrated the rock itself. It began climbing. Caelan got off belay and fumbled down the opposite side. When most of the way down, he jumped and hit the ground running. He snaked around trees and boulders, leapt over downed logs, dove into dense shrubbery, crawled through and resumed his frantic sprint. The pursuing growls were devolving into a macabre dissonance of seething, diabolic fury, like some overture of death. Just then, Caelan scrambled to a frenzied stop, slipping, falling, and sliding towards something just as horrific. It was the scar-faced bear. How did it get from the coast to the interior? Caelan curled into a ball and was sprayed with blood as the grisly and the demonic fury tore into one another. The swivels of claws and teeth were so ferocious. Even the ground beneath was being torn apart. Caelan crawled away from the warring monsters. 3 shadowy figures were grimly converging, swords in hand, appearing to have tracked one or both monstrosities. They bore mountaineering garb and gear and headlamps. It was the 3 psychos. Had they traversed the mountains too? "Thou shalt not eateth bloody flesh, neither shall ye use enchantments or practice sorcery," Beaudry preached as McConnelly thrust his sword at the demonic fury. It dodged the blade and dropped a thunderous claw to his chest, to a loud, searing hiss that sent McConnelly flying back. Beaudry lunged at it, dodged its claw strikes, then thrust his sword into its heart, emitting a loud, searing hiss. It fled. The bear, Beaudry and McConnelly gave chase. Caelan remained on the ground, clutching his pounding chest with one hand and his ice axe with the other. What the fuck? The demonic fury had looked part animal, part person, draped in red. "Foolish boy," Ivers growled as he stood over Caelan. "Why are you here?" "What was that?" "A bear." "The other one." "Rabid bears, like the ones that killed your father. Go home before they kill you too." "That wasn't a bear." "It was." "It wasn't. I saw it." "Such things do not exist," Ivers rasped. "I saw it." "Because things like that are eradicated. By us." "What?" "Go home." Where's the girl?" "There is no girl." "I'm here to save her life." Ivers glared at the love bites on Caelan's neck, displeased. "That was the girl," he groaned ominously. "Forget her. Go home and urge the town to evacuate. Tell them the bears have gone rabid and more are on the way. Then pray for us all." You're crazy. That wasn't the girl. She saved my life. You can't kill her. She's just a scared girl." "Heroism makes martyrs, boy. Prayer is safer. Go home!" Ivers warned menacingly, then stormed off into the night. Caelan hesitated, then retreated the way he came, heeding the warning. He eventually slowed to a stop. He turned, again hesitated, and instead followed Ivers to certain death. He couldn't let those 3 psychos kill her. They were out of their minds, and she needed his help.